There was one thing that Frankie Montas needed to show us on Wednesday, and he didn't. Are we concerned about the Reds opening day starter with just 2 weeks until the big day? No. We'll explain why on today's Locked On Reds.
You are Locked On Reds, your daily Cincinnati Reds podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Reds, your daily source for all things Cincinnati Reds. I'm Stephen Offenbaker. He's Jeff Carr. We love baseball. We love these Cincinnati Reds, and we have taken our love for the game. We have taken our love for this team, and we have turned it into information for you. Locked On Reds is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And on today's podcast, well, we needed to see one thing from Frankie Montas yesterday in his start out in Goodyear, and we didn't see it. But it's not time to worry yet, and we're going to tell you why, because we did see some things to be encouraged by. We're going to tell you what they are. While we're on the subject of spring training stats and results, we're going to tell you what's real and what's fake when you're talking spring training results and what's really important to pay attention to. There's a lot. There's a lot of news coming from the world of baseball that relates back to the Cincinnati Reds. We're going to dig through some of that. And we're going to take a look at the greatest Cincinnati Reds player to wear number 14. This is pretty much a no-brainer. But where we're going to start is with Frankie Montas, the opening day starter to be, Jeff. And you and I both wanted to see one thing from him in his start out in Goodyear yesterday, and that was for him to come out and be consistent and get his work in and come out of that thing uninjured. And he did some of that. He came out of that thing uninjured. Some of it was rough. It was rough, but he took advantage of the rules in spring training, and the Reds coaching staff took advantage of the rules. And at the end of the day, if we throw out his stat line, because we should, I'm kind of happy with how it ended up. When you take that start as a whole, started off very bad, terrible, horrible, no good at all, and he salvaged it. And that, to me, is what I want from my guy that's supposed to be leading this starting rotation.
Yeah, the first inning was a rough ride, man. He had 3 walks in that first inning, gave up an RBI single as well. Like, didn't look good at all. And he got pulled in the first inning, and that threw everybody off. In fact, Mark Sheldon even tweeted out he is being pulled in the first inning. This is the Reds opening day starter. Hopefully everything's okay. But he forgot the rules of spring training, where you can pull a guy if he's reached his pitch limit, and then you can bring him back out in the next inning. That's exactly what happened. And of course, that means that everybody kind of took that and ran with it. It was like, oh, is he hurt? Oh, no, here we go. He's fine. Now, he didn't have the best of outings, and that's going to happen in spring training. Like we've heard Graham Ashcraft talking about not having feel for pitches and things like that, but it's just about
unpack
getting
that.
ready.
Unpack that a little bit further. The pitch limit. What we're talking about is it is the middle of March. You do not want I'm coming off of a shoulder injury to throw a 50-pitch inning in Goodyear, Arizona in mid-March. There is zero reason that should happen. So kudos to David Bell and Derek Johnson for getting him out of there and coaching him up and getting him back in to continue to get his work in.
Let's be fair. We don't want Frankie Montas throwing a 50-pitch inning at any point this year, but certainly not in March. And that was another thing. Like as far as as the MLB at bat app goes, and in the game day, the live updates thing, because we have to listen to it on the radio and do the whole live updates thing. They don't keep track of pitches and which ones were strikes and which ones are balls and the total number of pitches and all that stuff. They keep track of batters faced, which he faced 18 batters in his 3 innings of work. And we said this, we needed to see him kind of pitch consistently, but pitch a little bit deeper into the game. And in fact, Mark Sheldon had even tweeted out that he was slated to pitch 5 innings in this game. It was just how that first inning unfolded, and then the rest of the outing, he was able to get back a little bit, but he still wasn't quite all there. And it wasn't to the point where David Bell felt comfortable letting him pitch 5 innings. So he was managing him well in this game. When it comes to Frankie Montas, we have heard all the reports out of camp that he came to Goodyear in the best shape of any starting pitcher, not just of anyone that had dealt with a shoulder injury or anyone of the injured pitchers that was coming back and trying to prove they were ready to go for opening day. He was the best conditioned pitcher. And that was one of the reasons they picked him, to be the opening day starter. So I believe that we're not worried about the health right now. Like, he wasn't pulled because of health. He was pulled because he just threw a whole lot of pitches in that first inning.
Yeah, what we're going to want to hear later today is that everything's okay. There's no ill effects. He's proceeding forward. That's what we're going to want to hear. There's not been time to hear that yet, but we don't have any inclination that he's injured. We believe that he's just going to move forward. He probably has 2 starts remaining, plenty of time to continue to work on things. What I liked here, obviously, he did not have it in the first inning. He had a feel for nothing. He walked 3 batters in the first inning, but when he came back, he did not walk another batter. That to me is the biggest piece of what happened between him leaving in the first inning and coming back. Whatever was going on, the coaching staff was able to work with him and they were able to fix it on the fly. That's a big deal for him to have been able to come back. And for me, that screams, hey, I'm a veteran guy. This is not my first rodeo. I know how to tweak things on the fly. And while some of our other pitchers may not have developed that yet, I think that is where this piece of Montas leading the staff comes in. Nobody jumped up and down when the Reds signed Frankie Montas and started shouting, the Reds got their ace. Nobody said that. And we're not saying that either. We're not saying Frankie Montas ace of the Cincinnati Reds pitching staff. But I think there is an element to this veteran leadership thing, especially amongst these starting pitchers. I think they need somebody around to lead this group that's faced some adversity, that knows how to battle through, that knows how to fight their way back, and that knows how to be a big leaguer. And, Hunter Green's going into year 3, Nick Lodolo's going into year 3. They've learned some of this along the way, but I think we underestimate what Frankie Montas brings to that room of starting pitchers as they're preparing for starts.
Well, and it's just like what Wade Miley did a couple of years ago, right? Like, Wade Miley wasn't the best pitcher in the room. Luis Castillo, Tyler Mahle, Sonny Gray, they were all better. But Wade Miley had the experience, and he could kind of be, he could be the Obi-Wan to all the other Jedi there in the starting rotation for the Reds. And that's what Frankie Montas is for this team. No, it makes sense.
Very good. No, very good. Listen, you've been remiss lately about dropping in your Star Wars references. I was kind of wondering if we had moved on from that, and clearly we have not.
No, but he's definitely a dude that's going to lead this staff. And what we're expecting from him individually, I've said it on the prediction side, is that, I'm looking for 25 starts, and we're looking for a 3.9 ERA. I really don't think that a 3.9 ERA is out of the realm of possibility. And you think, well, 3.9, that's not going to win him a Cy Young or anything like that. I'm not saying he needs to do that. But a 3.9 ERA is better than what the Reds starting pitching staff has produced in the last couple of years. That's just what we're looking for, at least in 25 starts. I know that Andrew Abbott did pretty well. He just didn't make it to 25 starts there. And I think had he, probably would have been a little bit higher of an ERA that he finished with. But the idea here is the stability that he brings to this staff, and what we will see in these remaining 2 starts that he has in spring training. I believe that we will see that consistency, and I'm not worried about him.
What we need to remember, Jeff, is who he is in this rotation. Like I said just a minute ago, he's not the ace, but you know who he is? He's not Luke Weaver, and that's who he's replacing. That's the guy that he's not Connor Overton. He's not Connor Overton.
Luis
he's not Luis
Cessa's not walking through that door.
Exactly. So, we're being realistic in the expectation for Frankie Montas. You're right. An under 4 ERA, 25 starts. That's great. I'm looking for 9 to 10 strikeouts per 9. I'm looking for 3 or less walks per 9. I'm looking for that sub 4 ERA, and I'm looking for 25 starts. If he does those things, this is an amazing signing for the Cincinnati Reds. And I get why he's here, and I get why they're running him out there on opening day.
But to be clear, we're not worried.
No,
we didn't see what we wanted to see, but we're not worried. You know what we talk about, health, and we talk about what to look for and all that other stuff. Spring training brings about so much news, information, and statistics. So what do you need to pay attention to? We'll tell you what you should be paying attention to coming up next.
Today's episode is brought to you by Amazon Fire TV. Fire TV is your destination for sports, from live games to highlights to in-depth analysis. Fire TV offers amazing viewing experiences with smart TVs, as well as the Fire TV stick that you can plug into your existing TV that provides access to millions of movies and TV episodes, as well as free and live TV. Whether it's opening weekend for baseball or the college basketball tournament, you're going to want to have Fire TV. Fire TV recently created Fire TV channels to deliver a constant supply of the latest videos from your favorite sports brands, all for free. That includes all of us here at Locked On and most of the big pro leagues and college conferences as well. Fire TV channels let you dive into all of the game analysis, highlights, and more to keep you up to date on all of the latest in the world of sports. March Madness, NBA, MLB, and lots more. Not to mention great news, entertainment, gaming, travel, cooking videos. They have it all. Check out Fire TV channels on Fire TV and Alexa devices. If you haven't checked out Fire TV channels, you should. Trust me on this. To learn more, just visit www.amazon.com/lockedonfiretv.
Say goodbye to busted brackets because FanDuel lets you bet on every game of the tournament. And if you bet on the Bearcats last night, you're pretty happy. Whether you're betting on a big upset like the Bearcats over the Kansas Jayhawks or the number 1 seed, it's time to go dancing on America's number 1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 to use on point spreads, money lines, over-unders. You know me, love the over. Prop bets and all that great stuff. You can even look at the futures and pick who's going to win it all. Speaking of futures, you can check out some MLB futures, some Reds futures, and they got some special futures on FanDuel right now. A lot of fun ones on there. This one is really standing out to me, and I think you should give it a look. Hunter Green to record 200-plus regular season strikeouts, and Elly De La Cruz to record 50-plus regular season stolen bases. Both those things have to happen. If they do, the odds on that happening are 8-1. So you're going to make 8 times your wager. I think I'm going to put a few bucks on that one. Follow me on over to FanDuel.com/LockedOn, and you can get in all on the college hoops action, on the MLB action, just 2 weeks away from opening day. Go to FanDuel.com/LockedOn right now. As you know, Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel, Locked On Sports Today. Baseball fans, mark your calendars for March 20th, that's next Wednesday, at 7 p.m. Eastern Time for the best MLB season preview coming exclusively to Locked On Sports Today. On March 20th at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, be the first to get local insight from the MLB local experts of Locked On, like Steve and myself, and you can find it on March 20th at 7 p.m. Eastern Time on the Locked On Sports Today 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. And for those of you who are everydayers, coming up on the next Locked On Reds podcast, it's an Aloha Friday, a little bit later on in the afternoon, 3 p.m. Eastern Time. Make sure you join us because we will be discussing how does the Dylan Cease trade to the Padres compare to what the Reds would have had to offer to get him. I mean, we heard about the rumored offers in the offseason and how crazy they were. I don't think it's as crazy as it sounds, or at least as crazy as that reported deal sounds. We'll compare that deal to what the Padres ended up trading on the Aloha Friday tomorrow at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. All right, Steve, we are 2 weeks away from opening day. We're 2 weeks away from baseball that matters. During these next 2 weeks, there's going to be a lot of stuff, a lot of stats. In fact, we're going to look at some stats here today and point out some ones that you really just need to enjoy the number for right now and not try to ascribe too much meaning to it. There's also lots of headlines and lots of info and stuff like that are coming out about different players and they're in the best shape of their lives and all this other stuff. What do we need to be paying attention to?
We need to be paying attention to whether or not a guy's getting their work in. Are they getting the requisite number of games played? Are they getting the requisite number of at-bats? Are they seeing enough pitches? If you're talking about a position player, if you're talking about a pitcher, are they getting enough work? Are they facing enough batters? Are they able to work on the pitches they're trying to add or the pitches that they're trying to improve? And then after all of that, when they show up at the complex the next day, Is everybody walking fine? Nobody's limping. Nobody's arm is sore. Everybody's okay. If that is what is happening, that is successful spring training. We get caught up in the numbers, right? Baseball is a number sport. It's what we do. But we look at what Elly De La Cruz is doing right now, and it's great. It's fun. It's exciting. That's not going to translate to the regular season. At least he's not going to have those same numbers. Everybody is all worked up over Stuart Fairchild right now, and I get it. It's fun. It's fun to watch. This is a guy that's trying to fight his way onto the roster. And while what he's doing in games out in Goodyear may matter a little bit for that, what you're seeing from Stuart Fairchild in Goodyear does not translate to what you will see from Stuart Fairchild in the major leagues. What we know about Stuart Fairchild is he has projected to be, and he has delivered upon being, a 4A player. When he faces major league pitching that's working like a major league pitcher, he's a 4A player. Now, not to say he can't break out of that. TJ Friedel did. But from where I'm sitting, the spring training stats, the lines, the box scores, all of that is just fun stuff to fill time until we get to March 28th. It's just noise. What really matters is health and players getting their work in.
Right. And look, I love the reports about, Stuart Fairchild worked really hard to get stronger during the offseason and get set for this year. And that's great. But for me to really get that excited about that sort of reporting, I got to see him do it in the regular season, because seeing him do it in spring training doesn't mean a hill of beans to me. We've seen plenty of guys do it in spring training. Norris Hopper, looking at you. Neftali Soto, looking at you. Different guys like that you could say these names, and diehard Reds fans, probably everydayers here, will know those names. Most people won't, and there's a reason for it. Because spring training, whether you're talking about, amazing statistics individually, or teams that have great win-loss records in spring training, it doesn't matter. I couldn't tell you the Reds spring training win-loss record from last year. Steve couldn't tell you the Reds spring training win-loss record from last year, because that stuff doesn't matter. But
where at Great American Ballpark is the Cactus League Championship banner section? Where are those? I know where the retired numbers are. I know where the World Series pennants are. Where are the Cactus League banners, Jeff?
I think it's that secret tunnel from there to the AC Hotel. I think that's where they keep. Anyway, by the way, that doesn't exist. Let's not start that. But when it comes to this spring training stuff, like let's look at a couple of different things. Some things that are fun. You know what's fun? Elly De La Cruz having an OPS of 1,138. That's fun. I'm not saying that means anything. He has an on-base percentage of 484. Is Elly about to get on base half the time? Because, by the way, if Elly gets on base half the time during the regular season, not a single soul has any prayer of winning, and I include Shohei Ohtani as a prayer of winning an MVP if Elly De La Cruz is getting on base 50% of the time. But that's not going to happen, because spring training numbers do not translate in that way. It's the same thing, like, we always say this too with anybody that gets overly excited about a minor leaguer and the stats that they're putting up in the minor leagues. Those stats don't transfer. There's a level of talent that you face in spring training that is much more commiserate with minor league talent than with major league. And that's actually something that Baseball Reference has really helped us out with. They quantify as much as you can the quality of opposing pitchers, or batters in the case of pitchers, that a player faces, with 10 being MLB level and 1 being the opposing batter is a pitcher or the opposing pitcher is a batter. Things like that. Like, they're just not even being considered. The highest opponent quality number that anybody has on the team is 8.0. And guess who that is, Steve?
Who is that?
He's no longer here. He's a Texas Ranger. Jose Barrero.
They set him up. They set him up.
They put him against all the tough. Yeah, exactly. But that's the thing. Like, even Elly's opponent quality average is 7.4, which that range of numbers would put him somewhere between the quality of opponents he's faced in spring training being somewhere between AA and AAA. You're not facing major league guys going 100% of the time, competing the way that they will in the regular season. So don't go crazy about spring training statistics.
Yeah, because I remember everyone losing their mind when Amir Garrett struck every single batter out that he faced in Goodyear. And he should have, because he was facing guys from A ball, double A. He should have been striking those guys out. The thing for me is, the encouraging thing for me, Jeff, though, is the number of people that care right now.
Yes.
And I think that's why we're having this conversation.
And I'm not saying
there
don't care, just
there are so many people
about
right now that have re-engaged with this team, that have recommitted to the Reds, that I think everybody is just super excited. Everybody is looking for that thing. And since we can't see the games, since the Cincinnati Reds and Bally Sports have decided to deprive us of any look at the Cincinnati Reds before they come to Cincinnati, we have to kind of fill in the blanks in our mind. So we're looking at the box scores. We're listening to the radio broadcast. We're filling in the blanks all on our own. And, we're ready to hoist that World Series banner right now on March 28th. And I get it. So don't look at this segment as us poo-pooing the team or trying to downplay your excitement. All we're trying to say is, be realistic when you look at those numbers and ask yourself how they're going to translate into the regular season. Do you believe, what's more likely, that Stuart Fairchild is facing a competition level that's below where he is as a player, or that Stuart Fairchild just figured it all out between the end of last year and the beginning of this year? What's more likely is he's facing guys that are below his talent level. Not to say that he's not better. Time is going to tell us. April is going to tell us that. April is going to tell us what is real. And again, at the end of this, if everybody's healthy the day after they play out in Goodyear, Arizona, that is a successful day.
And I did look at the pitchers, and actually Graham Ashcraft's opponent quality level is around 8.6, Frankie Montas 8.4. But again, not to get too into the numbers, a few people are facing AAA level players here. But also the point of the matter is, understand what you need to care about when it comes to spring training. You need to care about how exciting this team is. You need to care about who's healthy. You need to care about who at least looks the part, as much as we can see, and as much as Tommy Thrall and Jeff Brantley and Jim Day will tell us on the radio. Like, that's kind of where we have to rely on them if you're not out there in Goodyear. But this team has so much talent, and I don't want it to get lost in translation that, oh my gosh, Ellie's going to hit 400 this year. It's just, that's not going to be the case. But there's going to be lots of exciting moments surrounding this team.
All right, Jeff, there was a lot of news from around baseball yesterday that had Cincinnati Reds connections and or implications. We're going to get everybody caught up on that. And we're going to talk the greatest Reds player to ever wear the number 14. We're going to get into all of that next. Today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. Conference tournaments are here, which means the biggest moments in college basketball are getting closer. Be a part of the action on PrizePicks for both men's and women's college basketball. Get in on the excitement with PrizePicks, America's #1 fantasy sports app, where you can turn your hoops knowledge into serious cash. You can now win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. You can turn your $10 bet into $1,000 cash with NBA, NHL, and college basketball entries today on PrizePicks, America's #1 fantasy sports app. You can also put together some PrizePicks with MLB season stats. PrizePicks has Hunter Green's season strikeout total at 189.5. They also have the total number of multi-homer games for Ellie De La Cruz at 1.5. So if you think that Hunter's going to have more than a 189.5 in strikeouts, click that more button. Throw that bet down. If you think that Ellie's going to give you just 2 multi-homer games in 2024, you click more there as well. Jeff Carr can't resist the more button. He'll be taking both of those. To get in on the action, just download the app today and use the code LOCKEDONMLB for your first deposit match of up to $100. Again, just download the app and use the code LOCKEDONMLB for up to $100 match on your first deposit. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. You can follow us in between episodes on social media. Over on Twitter X, you can follow me at @SOffenbaker with 2 Fs. You can follow Jeff at Jeff Carr. That's Jeff with 3 Fs. And you can follow the show at Locked On Reds. There are no Fs in that. Make sure you bookmark the site InsightTheReds.com. Jeff's writing about the Reds over there. I'm writing about the Reds. James Rapine, Audie Elmore, Rick Uccino, Caleb Sisk. Great staff of writers covering the Reds in written form every day. And if you haven't done so, get on our Discord server. Our Discord community is great. There's a little something for everybody over there. The link to get to our Discord server is down in today's episode description. All right, Jeff, let's start with some news from around baseball, because some interesting news out of Milwaukee Brewers camp, and that is Devin Williams is going to miss at least 3 months of this baseball season. And for a team that we were already speculating was on the bubble of competition and whether or not we were going to be worried about them in 2024, I think this just popped that bubble. I think we're pretty much a 2-horse race in the National League Central now between the Cincinnati Reds and the Chicago Cubs. I think the Brewers are going to blow it up.
Yeah, I know that Milwaukee has a deep bullpen. They've got a lot of talent out there in the pen, but it all starts with Devin Williams. And when you get rid of him, everybody's got to shift up. And you got some guys that are going to face some opposition that they weren't necessarily really prepared to do. Devin Williams is interesting because it does say around 3 months. There's a possibility it could be less, but that's basically up until the All-Star break is probably what you're looking at before the Brewers get him back into game action. He has multiple. They said there were 2 reported stress fractures in his back. Like that just, I mean, it makes me cringe even just saying that. So I hope for him personally that that's something he recovers well from. But on the Milwaukee side of things, we have both said that if they start out slow, do they blow it up early? Do they set the trade market? Because they got Willy Adames. Does anyone want to pick up Christian Yelich's contract? I think if someone comes calling for that, then they'd be more than happy to deal it. Does someone come calling on Rhys Hoskins? I know they just signed him, but if they can look at this and say, we got Jackson Chourio coming up, we've got some other great prospects. The Brewers are like consensus top 3 or 4, depending on the prospect ranking website that's talking about them, but they're really high up there. So the future is still very bright for Milwaukee, but the 2024 season is in doubt. And now that Devin Williams is out, I really think that we are going to see this Milwaukee team. Who knows? Maybe they even do like a Pirates thing from last year. Remember the Pirates were in first place at the end of April of the NL Central. How'd that work for them? That's probably something that we'll see from Milwaukee as well.
And we're seeing some responses to it already, right? And we know that the odds makers have not been favorable to the Reds. Our friends over at FanDuel just raised the over under by a game. It went from 81.5 to 82.5. So people are starting to consider Cincinnati to be, the up and coming team here in the division. I think that this just really solidifies what you and I have been saying all along. You and I have been saying all along that we didn't think Milwaukee was going to be the great disruptor in 2024. And I think this really just makes it clear that we're on track for it to be a 2-horse race. And, I'm looking forward to the Reds running away with this division.
Yeah, and again, we're saying 2-horse race. Reds, Cubs. Not buying into the Cardinals thing of this. I mean, they're already dealing with injuries with Sonny Gray. I know he was back throwing a bullpen and all this other stuff, but that's not going to be the only time they deal with injuries with Sonny Gray this year. They've got Kyle Gibson and Lance Lynn, who are both advertising for AARP in the state of Missouri. I mean, they've got all these different guys on this team that it's just, no, I'm not worried about the Cardinals at all. And the Brewers have just told us you don't need to worry about them either. So, yes, 2-horse race. All right, 14 days away, 2 weeks away. I mean, this is obvious. I don't know exactly if anybody has a question about who the best number 14 is. The number is retired for a reason.
The number is retired for a reason. It belongs to Mr. 4256. That's Peter Edward Rose. This guy did it for decades, more hits than anybody else in Major League Baseball. I have my 1980s/90s bullpen jacket on. I am ready to go to the Nasty Boys. I'm bringing in Rob Dibble right now. After that, I'm bringing in Norm Charlton. I'm ready to go. Can you not picture me in the dugout at Riverfront Stadium, ready to make that move to the bullpen, Jeffrey?
No, Pete didn't have a goatee.
I'm not shaving it. I'm not shaving. No, listen.
I don't think it's what it is. But hey, nobody had more WAR than Pete Rose on the Reds. Nobody played as long of a career and was as good as long as Pete was on the field. Like, I think, and we're not going to get into the off the field stuff, but I think that it sucks that all of that exists, that we don't get to talk about how awesome of a player he was, because you have to like say it with this whole shadow of all that other stuff. But to know that there is a reason that the number 14 is retired and the only person to ever wear it after him was his own son, like that's just, it's because of how good he was at the game of baseball.
5 times he led the league in games played. 7 times he led the league in plate appearances. 4 times in at-bats. 7 times he led the league in hits. That is from 1963 to 1986, Jeff. 24 big league years. That's amazing. Yeah. It's absolutely amazing.
I'd be interested too. Like we talk, I mean, obviously you talk about most hits anybody in their career, but also runs scored, like 1,741. Anybody ever going to score more than that? Because that feels like a lot. I mean, you got to play a long time to get anywhere near the records that he set, but you also got to be pretty good the whole time. I mean, longevity is not just because you wouldn't retire. Like, people don't just hand you jobs. You got to be good for all those years. And he was, man. Nobody was better.
He hit over 316 times in his Major League Baseball career. It's just absolutely amazing to me. And I'm not talking about, early in his career. Let's jump to 1984. His 1984, he was with the Cincinnati Reds for 26 games, came home to the Reds from Montreal. He hit 365, 430, 458 when he came back to do his homecoming with the Cincinnati Reds.
You give his slash line to Ellie De La Cruz, and Ellie's winning all the MVPs, because that's the thing too. Because like the whole conversation, we always have this, right? Like, who's the most talented Red, the most talented Red in the history of the franchise? And the answer is Frank Robinson. But who had the best stats and who had the best career, the best numbers and everything that they were able to put together? It was Pete. Pete Rose did it.
In the entirety of his time in Cincinnati, 19 years, his OPS was 124. So he was just 25% better than everybody else.
Just pretty damn good.
Almost 2 decades. It's really good. And on that note, Jeff, let's get out of here. That is going to do it for this edition of Locked on Reds. Thanks so much for making us your first listen every day. Everydayers coming up on our next show. It is an Aloha Friday live edition, 3 p.m. Eastern time. We're going to be talking about this Cease trade that, didn't quite work out how the White Sox wanted it to work out in the offseason. I don't think we're going to break that down. We're going to talk about what it would have looked like for the Reds to have made a similar move. We're going to talk about if the Reds missed an opportunity, and we're going to talk about everything that's going on out in Goodyear as this team gets ready to head north. Jeff, wrap it up.
That'll do it for us here today on the Locked on Reds podcast. Remember, we will be all over the goings-on in Goodyear, Arizona. What's going on the field, as well as what's going on rumors-wise off the field, and news and injury updates and all that great stuff, because we are Locked on Reds every single day.
I need a helmet golf cart to ride on. That's the only thing missing.
Your camera's shot's not big enough for that.